My name is Evelyn Kingsley. I was 34 years old when I finally understood that my sister didn't just resent her daughter, she regretted her. For a long time, my family pretended not to see it. Or maybe we told ourselves it was something simpler, easier, something we could excuse without having to confront what it said about us. At first, we thought Carmen hated Lana because she was a girl. That explanation felt neat, contained, almost forgivable. Carmen had always been that way. Growing up in suburban Colorado, she surrounded herself exclusively with boys, boy friends, boy classmates, boyfriends who rotated in and out of her life like interchangeable accessories. She used to say girls were too emotional, too competitive, too much work. When she said it, she smiled, like she was stating a scientific fact instead of a personal bias. When I got older, I learned to translate her language. Girls scared her. When Carmen announced her first pregnancy, she turned it into a spectacle, a full production, a backyard gender reveal with blue balloons, blue frosting, blue smoke cannons ordered online weeks in advance. Everything screamed certainty. I remember standing beside my boyfriend Arnold, watching Carmen pace the lawn like a general awaiting victory. When the cannon went off and pink smoke billowed into the air, the sound of cheering covered it, but not completely. I saw her face fall. It wasn't dramatic, no tears, no screaming, just a subtle collapse, like someone had quietly unplugged her from something vital. Her shoulders dropped, her smile froze in place, stiff and artificial. Later, she told everyone she was thrilled. Later still, she started sharing articles about toxic femininity. Later still, she joined online groups with names like Boy Moms United and joked about getting it right next time. Lana was born in early spring. From the beginning, Carmen kept her at a distance. She dressed her in gray and beige, neutral colors stripped of personality. She called her the baby instead of her name. At family gatherings, she handed Lana off within minutes, complaining that she cried too much, needed too much, felt too much. "She's dramatic," Carmen would say, rolling her eyes. Lana was 2. Arnold and I had been trying to have children for 7 years by then. 7 years of charting cycles. 7 years of injections, appointments, sterile waiting rooms, and whispered conversations in hospital parking lots when we thought no one could hear us break. I lost my last pregnancy at Presbyterian St. Joseph. I remember the ceiling tiles. I remember the smell of antiseptic. I remember the way Arnold held my hand, like he was afraid if he loosened his grip, I'd disappear. After that, something inside me hardened. So when Carmen complained, openly, casually, that she didn't want her daughter, something in me snapped. One Sunday after church, when Lana was toddling around the fellowship hall with a cracker clenched in her fist, I pulled Carmen aside. "If you really feel this way," I said carefully, "Arnold and we would take her. We'd raise her. You wouldn't have to." Her reaction wasn't anger. It was panic. Her eyes went wild, sharp, animal. "I'd rather sell her than give her to you," she hissed. I laughed then, nervous, disbelieving. I shouldn't have. When Carmen announced her second pregnancy, she made her expectations clear. At a 4th of July barbecue, surrounded by red cups and sparklers, she said flatly that if the baby wasn't a boy, she wouldn't keep it. She wasn't having another failure. No one laughed that time. She tried everything: calendars, supplements, old wives' tales, even consultations for gender selection IVF in California. When the reveal finally came and blue smoke filled the air, Carmen collapsed to her knees, sobbing like she'd just been handed a winning lottery ticket. Lana waddled toward her, arms outstretched, asking what was happening. Carmen shoved her aside. Lana fell. Her knee scraped against the metal swing set. Blood welled up. She screamed. Carmen didn't even look at her. That was the moment I knew this wasn't about preference. It was something darker, something broken. We distanced ourselves after that. Carmen moved through the rest of her pregnancy like someone possessed. After her son Jackson was born, overseas, in Thailand to save money, we barely spoke. Then came the FaceTime call. 7 relatives on screen. Carmen smiling too brightly, Jackson asleep in her arms. When Aunt Linda asked to see Lana, Carmen froze. She admitted it calmly, casually. She'd put Lana up for adoption while 6 months pregnant. Said it was practical. Said it saved money. Said she couldn't handle 2 kids. My grandmother clutched her chest and collapsed seconds later. The call descended into chaos, and that night, when I came home from the hospital, Arnold was deleting photos from his phone. Ultrasound images. Old ones. When I asked him what he was doing, he snapped. Told me to let it go. Told me Lana wasn't our business. I hadn't mentioned Lana. That was when I realized something far worse than cruelty was at work. And the next morning, I made a decision that would burn everything down. I didn't sleep that night. Arnold lay beside me, his back turned, breathing slow and even in the way people do when they're pretending to be asleep. Every time I shifted, his shoulders tightened, like he was bracing for impact. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the FaceTime call on a loop. Carmen's voice, casual, detached. I gave her up in December, while we were buying Christmas gifts, while Lana was still calling me Aunt Evelyn and sitting on my lap to watch cartoons, while Carmen was pregnant with her precious son and planning a trip to Thailand. And my grandmother, strong, sharp-tongued, stubborn my entire life, had collapsed because of it. Something about the timing gnawed at me. December wasn't just when Lana disappeared. December was when everything in my life had gone quiet, in a way I hadn't questioned at the time. Arnold used to come with me to fertility appointments. He'd wait in the car, bring me coffee, hold my hand afterward. After my last miscarriage, he became distant. Not cruel, just absent. He said he needed space to process his grief. I gave it to him because I thought grief had rules. Now, lying in the dark, I wondered who he'd been processing with instead. The next morning, I watched him leave for work through the kitchen window. He didn't kiss me goodbye, just grabbed his keys and muttered something about being late. The silence he left behind was heavy. I called in sick and drove to my grandmother's house instead. She was propped up in bed, oxygen hissing softly, Aunt Linda seated beside her with a legal pad already half full of notes. When she saw me, her eyes sharpened. Carmen didn't just give that child away, she said without preamble. She hid it. And people hide things when they know they're wrong. That was all the permission I needed. By noon, I was sitting across from Detective Ray Kowalski in a cramped office that smelled like stale coffee and dust. Former Denver PD. Family cases now. The kind of man who didn't waste words or soften truths. I want everything, I told him. Where Lana is, who her father is, and whether there's enough to involve CPS. He studied me for a long moment. Sometimes, he said slowly, people don't like what they find. I already don't like what I know, I replied. He nodded once. Deal made. The waiting was agony. 2 weeks felt like 2 years. I went through the motions, laundry, grocery shopping, pretending my marriage wasn't cracking at the seams. Arnold barely spoke to me. When he did, his words felt rehearsed, defensive, like he was constantly preparing for an argument I hadn't started yet. Then Ray called. Got something, he said. Actually, I've got a lot. We met that afternoon. He slid a manila envelope across the table, thick enough to make my stomach drop before I even opened it. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, deleted text messages. 4 years ago. Right after my miscarriage. While I was hospitalized, Carmen and Arnold had stayed at a downtown Marriott together. Multiple nights. Charged to his card. Messages recovered from backups. Comforting. Intimate. Unmistakable. And the dates? The dates lined up perfectly. Lana was born 9 months later. Ray's voice was steady when he told me the rest. He'd managed to retrieve Lana's DNA from a juice box she'd left at my house months earlier. Compared it to Arnold's. A match. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember leaving the office. I remember sitting in my Subaru Outback in the parking lot, the envelope on the passenger seat like a bomb waiting to go off. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I felt empty. hollowed out so completely there was no room for panic. A strange calm settled over me. That calm lasted exactly 1 week. I filed for divorce quietly, froze our joint accounts, let my lawyer handle the paperwork. I didn't confront Arnold, not yet. Instead, I waited. The day I chose was intentional. Carmen texted me that morning, saying she wanted to clear the air. Arnold said she was stopping by later to talk about family logistics. They arrived within minutes of each other. His silver Chevy Malibu parked next to her red Ford Explorer in our apartment lot. I watched from my car as they exchanged a glance. Quick, familiar. Not lovers, co-conspirators. I waited 5 minutes before following them inside. Their voices floated down the hallway when I reached our door. Casual, relaxed. Like two people who believed the worst was already behind them. I stepped inside. Arnold was on the couch, scrolling his phone. Carmen stood at the counter with a glass of water, perfectly at ease. "Hey, babe," Arnold said without looking up. "Carmen just got here." I set the envelope on the coffee table. "We need to talk," I said. "All 3 of us." Carmen rolled her eyes. "If this is about Lana again." I opened the envelope. Spread the contents across the table slowly. Deliberately. The color drained from Arnold's face. Hotel receipts, phone logs, DNA results. "What is this?" he whispered. "You know exactly what it is," I said, my voice terrifyingly steady. 4 years ago, while I was in the hospital losing our baby, you were sleeping with my sister." Carmen laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh my God," she said. "You hired someone to dig into this? That's pathetic." "Is it pathetic?" I asked, holding up the DNA report, "that Lana is Arnold's daughter?" The room went silent. Arnold stood up so fast his phone hit the floor. "This is fake," he said hoarsely. "You're making it up because you're jealous." I pressed play on my phone. His voice filled the room. Talking to Carmen about keeping their secret, about how I could never find out who Lana's real father was. Carmen's smile vanished. She sat down hard enough to shatter her glass. "You recorded us?" she breathed. "Your own security system did," I replied. "The one you installed after Jackson was born." I gathered the papers back into neat piles. "I've already filed for divorce, Arnold," I said calmly. "You'll get the paperwork tomorrow." He lunged for the envelope. "You can't do this. Half our money is gone." "Actually," I said, stepping back, "I already did." They turned on each other instantly. Accusations, screaming, years of lies unraveling in minutes. And just when it seemed the room couldn't hold any more truth, the front door opened. My grandmother walked in, supported by Aunt Linda and Uncle Pete. Her eyes blazed. "Enough," she said. Carmen crossed her arms. "It's done. The adoption is final." Aunt Linda stepped forward slowly. "Sunshine Private Adoption Agency, right?" she asked. "They're famous for their 6-month reversal window. Biological parents can reclaim a child if both parents didn't consent." She looked directly at Arnold. "Did you sign anything?" Arnold shook his head. "I didn't even know she was pregnant." Carmen's face finally cracked, and that was when I realized this wasn't over. It was just beginning. For a moment, no one spoke. The words "reversal window" hung in the air like a threat no one had prepared for. Carmen recovered first. She always did. "That doesn't matter," she snapped, straightening her spine. "I chose a closed adoption. No contact, no takebacks." Aunt Linda didn't flinch. "Closed doesn't mean irreversible, especially when fraud or lack of consent is involved." Arnold looked like he might be sick. "I didn't know," he said again, quieter this time. "She told me it was a one-night thing, that it wasn't mine." Carmen spun on him. "You knew there was a chance." "You told me it wasn't," he shouted back. "You said you handled it." I stepped away from them, watching the conspiracy collapse under its own weight. It was almost clinical, how quickly affection turned to blame when survival was on the line. My grandmother moved closer to Carmen, her voice low but lethal. "Did you ever take money from him for that child?" Carmen hesitated. "Just long enough." "No," she said finally. "He offered. I said no. I didn't want strings." "That's not what the messages say," Aunt Linda replied, lifting her phone. "You complained constantly about expenses, about how she ruined your life." Carmen's mouth opened, then closed. Uncle Pete shifted, blocking the doorway without saying a word. "You're not leaving," my grandmother said. "Not yet." Carmen laughed sharply. "You can't hold me hostage." "No," Aunt Linda said, "but we can document everything you say." She hit record. That's when Carmen's composure shattered. "You all think you're saints," she hissed. "You think you're better than me because you wanted her? That's not how this works." She turned to me, eyes blazing. "You don't get her. You never did." "I didn't give her away," I said quietly. "I gave her away because of you," Carmen screamed. "Because every time I looked at her, I saw what you couldn't have. I wasn't going to let you win." The room went still. Aunt Linda's phone captured every word. Arnold stared at Carmen like he was seeing her for the first time. "You did this to hurt Evelyn?" he asked. "You gave away our daughter out of spite?" "She wasn't wanted," Carmen shot back, "by either of us." "That's a lie," he said hoarsely. "I just didn't know she was mine." The front door rattled as someone tried the handle. Then Carmen's phone rang. She snatched it up, hands shaking. "Sunshine Private Adoption," the screen read. She answered on speaker, forcing a smile into her voice. "This is Carmen." "Ms. Rodriguez," a woman said gently. "The adoptive family has encountered some difficulties. They're requesting to return early." Carmen's eyes widened. "They're attached," she blurted. "You can't just—" "They're on their way," the woman continued. "They'll be in town tonight. Where should they bring Lana?" "My house," Carmen said instantly. "Actually," another voice cut in, "my lawyers." He'd been conferenced into the call. "We've arranged for Lana to be brought to her great-grandmother's residence. All parties have agreed this is the safest, neutral location." Carmen screamed. She hurled her phone against the wall. It shattered, plastic and glass skittering across the floor. "You planned this," she shrieked, pointing at me. "All of you." "No," I said evenly. "You planned this 4 years ago. We're just cleaning it up." Arnold backed away from her, fear replacing fury. "You're sick," he said. "You used all of us." Carmen rounded on him. "You were relieved. Don't pretend you weren't. When I said I handled it, you didn't ask questions." He didn't deny it. Aunt Linda stepped forward with a folder. "Arnold, these are parental rights acknowledgement documents. If you sign, you can avoid prosecution for abandonment and back child support." "Prosecution?" he whispered. "You knew about Lana for years," she said, "and provided nothing." His hands shook as he took the pen. He signed. Carmen watched in horror as her last ally collapsed. "This isn't over," she hissed. "She's mine." "Legally," Aunt Linda agreed, "for now. But family court will be very interested in your social media history. The posts about not wanting daughters, the statements about selling her, the recorded admission you just made." Carmen lunged for the door. Uncle Pete didn't move. "My truck's blocking your car," he said calmly. Sirens wailed outside minutes later. Carmen had tried to leave anyway, erratic driving, pulled over 2 blocks away. By the time we reached my grandmother's house in Lakewood, headlights were already in the driveway. A Honda Pilot. The adoptive parents stepped out slowly, exhaustion etched into every line of their faces. And then they opened the back door. Lana climbed out, clutching a stuffed elephant. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older, too. Her hair longer, pulled into uneven pigtails. She wore a pink coat I'd never seen. The adoptive mother approached me first. "She's been asking for someone named Aunt Evelyn," she said softly. "Every night." My chest tightened. Lana looked around at the unfamiliar faces, fear creeping into her eyes. Then Carmen burst through the group. "Baby," she cried, dropping to her knees. "It's Mommy." Lana recoiled. She stepped back, pressing into the adoptive father's leg. "I don't know you," she whispered. Carmen froze. Then Lana saw me. Her face lit up with recognition so fierce it stole my breath. "Aunt Evelyn," she said. She ran to me, wrapped her arms around my legs like she'd never let go. "Where did Mommy go?" she asked quietly. I knelt down, heart breaking open. "I'm here," I told her. "You're safe now." Behind us, Carmen's scream shattered the night. Lawyers were called. Emergency custody papers drafted. Doors locked. As chaos swirled around us, Lana leaned her head against my shoulder. For the first time in years, I didn't feel empty. I felt ready. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for 3 days later. 72 hours doesn't sound like much on paper. In reality, it was a war. Carmen showed up at my grandmother's house at dawn the very next morning, pounding on the door like a debt collector. Uncle Pete had slept on the couch specifically to stop that exact scenario. He didn't open it. He didn't have to. The police report from her traffic stop the night before was already circulating. By noon, my lawyer, David Chun, called with troubling news. "Carmen's hired counsel," he said. "They're filing emergency motions claiming you orchestrated an illegal adoption reversal and manipulated the adoptive family." I closed my eyes, Lana's small weight warm against my side on the couch. "She barely slept," I said quietly. "She wakes up crying every hour." "That actually helps," David replied gently. "The adoptive family has submitted sworn statements. Night terrors, refusing to eat, asking for you by name." I looked down at Lana. She was coloring at the coffee table, tongue caught between her teeth in concentration, elephant tucked under her arm like a shield. When Arnold showed up that afternoon, I felt it before I saw him. The air shifted. Lana looked up when she heard his voice. She stared at him for a long moment, studied his face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Then she asked, "Are you my daddy?" The question landed like a dropped plate. Arnold's mouth opened, closed. His eyes filled, not with love, not with resolve, but with fear. He didn't answer. He turned around and walked out. Lana watched the door shut. Then she went back to coloring, like she'd already learned not to wait for people who didn't choose her. That night, after I tucked her in, I cried in the bathroom with the shower running so she wouldn't hear me break. The financial fallout hit next. Arnold had cleared more accounts than we initially realized. Legal fees mounted. Emergency filings weren't cheap. I sold my car, my jewelry, anything that wasn't nailed down. My family helped where they could, but everyone was stretched thin. I didn't regret a single dollar. The final hearing arrived on a cold Thursday morning. I dressed Lana in her favorite purple sweater and braided her uneven hair as carefully as I could. She clutched my hand as we walked into the Jefferson County Courthouse, her grip tight but steady. Judge Patricia Hamilton reviewed everything: the social media posts, the recordings, the psychological evaluations, the adoption agency's sworn testimony, Carmen's own words, preserved in perfect, damning clarity. When the judge asked to see Lana in chambers, my heart stopped. 20 minutes passed, then 30. I stared at the courtroom door like I could will it open. When it finally did, Lana ran straight to me, wrapped her arms around my leg. Judge Hamilton cleared her throat. "This court finds that returning the child to Ms. Rodriguez poses a significant emotional risk," she said evenly. "Full legal custody is awarded to Evelyn Kingsley. No visitation rights for the biological mother, pending completion of court-mandated parenting classes and psychological evaluation." Carmen exploded. "She's not even her real mother," she screamed. "This is kidnapping." "One more outburst," Judge Hamilton said coolly, "and I will hold you in contempt." Arnold's petition was denied in its entirety. Outside the courthouse, Carmen confronted us on the steps, eyes wild. "You think you've won?" she spat. "I'll never stop fighting." "Then you'll keep losing," my grandmother said quietly, "because you're fighting for pride, not love." 6 months later, the adoption finalized. Lana wore a new purple dress and held her stuffed elephant like it was a ceremonial object. When the judge asked if she wanted to be my daughter, she nodded solemnly and said yes in a clear, unwavering voice. That night, tucking her into what was now officially her room, she asked the question I'd been dreading. "Will Carmen try to take me away again?" I smoothed her hair back gently. "No," I promised. "I won't let anyone hurt you again." A year later, at a school event, I met Thomas. He was widowed, quiet. His daughter sat beside Lana in class. We talked while the girls played on the swings, comparing notes on therapy appointments and bad cafeteria food. He understood complicated families. When he proposed 2 years later, he didn't ask me first. He asked Lana. The wedding was small, family only. Lana stood beside me as my maid of honor, Beaming in a purple dress she chose herself. During the reception, she leaned in and whispered, "Now I have a real daddy, too." That night, after tucking her in, I stood in her doorway and watched her sleep. The journey hadn't looked anything like the one Arnold and I had planned. It wasn't biological, it wasn't easy, it wasn't fair, but it was real. Lana still had nightmares sometimes. She still went to therapy. Trauma doesn't disappear because paperwork changes. But she laughed now. She knew she was wanted, chosen. In the end, Carmen had been right about one thing. I'd never be Lana's real mother in the biological sense, but I was her mother in every way that mattered.